Hi, Guy. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Me as well, Rami. Thank you for
So I'd like to just start from the top. Tell us about you, what it is that you do in the world.
yeah. My name is Guy Borgford. I was born Canadian, immigrated to the United States when I was 36 years old to work in the technology space in Seattle. And I worked in a combination of business development and sales and marketing for about, I don't know, 25 years. And Uh, I'm currently a writer, an artist, an entheogenic practitioner, sacred mushroom minister, a community builder, and a student of spiritual herbalism. I run a small retreat working with different molecules as well as assist in ayahuasca ceremonies, of which I am the humble assistant and sidekick of my good friend Garrett Renan, who is most people call him a shaman, but he's a curandero and trained in the Shipibo tradition.
Beautiful. Yes, so that's also the resonance. I think that that is the tradition that my teacher was also initiated into. So I really am familiar with it. It's a beautiful, incredibly ancient and deep tradition.
It sure is.
Yeah,
Sure is.
yeah. So I want to know a little bit about you and your story of emergence, experiences, influences, the things that shaped your path to steward your way into where you are now and the work that you're doing now.
Sure. When I was young, I was very much connected to nature. I was very much an odd kid. I never felt like I really fit in. I was a published writer by the time I was 10 years old, where some of my poetry was entered in a contest of young Canadian writers. And, I was at the top of my class in school. And as you can imagine, I was bullied because of it. And so at the tender age of about 12, my father was killed in a helicopter accident, and just all the kind of the pressure of being bullied and the loss of my father, who was my hero, I made the decision to just be average. And so I stopped really trying in school and I started experimenting with drugs. And I first used psychedelics when I was 14 years old, using mushrooms, MDMA, LSD, and started smoking cannabis and drinking alcohol. And so I kind of fell into the stoner crowd, and that was a way for me to try and fit in and to not stand out and not be bullied. And it worked, it got me through high school without getting my butt kicked. And, this kind of continued throughout my 20s. I started bartending in a club in Vancouver, Canada. And I started using cocaine quite regularly and heavily. It was everywhere back then. And, that lasted for a few years. And I went back to school when I was in my late 20s and I got a degree in communication. I quit cocaine, was sober for 5 years. I then immigrated to the United States at 36 and started working in tech and kind of got back into the party scene. At 36, right after we moved here, I came out as gay, and I had 2 young kids. One of them was only 3 months old, and as you can imagine, it was a pretty tumultuous time. But with that and kind of managing all that upheaval and chaos, I started, drinking again, and I started partying a bit and using things like ecstasy once in a while, not heavily, but going into my I led a pretty hedonistic life for about a good, almost 20 years. Just really, a life of pleasure and hedonism. And then I got to my like early to mid 50s, and I'm really dating myself here, aren't I? And I started developing a little curiosity. And I started reading books on Buddhism, and I started reading books on consciousness and just exploring a little bit. And then one day I got a message from my sister, who I'm super close with. And she, on I should mention that when I was 22 years old, my mother was murdered, and she was murdered in her home. And this was our deceased mother's birthday. And, fast forward 20 years after she was murdered, kind of thing. And my sister gets a message from a friend to attend a holotropic breath class. And she had never done breath work before. And she's called into this class. She does the breath work. She goes into a non-ordinary state of consciousness. And among the things communicated to her was, your brother needs to wake up. He needs to wake up now, like this.
Wow.
And
A
and
message from beyond.
yes, and it was this divine feminine energy, she said, that filled the room and filled her body. And it was like our mother's energy times 1,000. And
Wow.
so the next day I get a book by Joe Dispenza called Becoming Supernatural. And I start reading about meditation and I start meditating. And after about a week, things start changing. And after 3 months, I had a huge shift in awareness. My life imploded. And after a month after that, I was still trying to get my footing. And my sister sends me an article about Kundalini awakenings. And I was like, oh, check, check, check. Okay, now I know what happened to me. So
Yes.
that led me to ayahuasca, and I started working with ayahuasca. And after my first ayahuasca experience, I quit cocaine and I quit cigarettes and never touched them again, except for every once in a while, if somebody has a American Spirit ultralight, I will bum a smoke and I will have American Spirit ultralight. I still have that. It tastes so good. But the big thing was that I quit cocaine and I was using it again fairly regularly, and not heavily, but pretty regularly. So, I always justified it that, well, I'm not using it heavily, it's just like a little bump now and then. That's how I just justified it. But regardless, I was milking it for every bit of dopamine that I could. So that led me to more work with ayahuasca. But then I also started working with mushrooms, and I learned how to extract DMT from Mimosa hostilis. And I started working with DMT as well. And then that kind of brought me into facilitation. Through the medicine, it was like, the medicine kept telling me, you need to learn more about this. You need to try and help other people with it. I think a lot of people get that calling when they start working with medicine. Mine was
Yeah.
loud and clear. And then
Yeah.
so I started volunteering for an organization that led me to the McKenna Academy of Natural Philosophy. And so I helped Dennis McKenna, so I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, launch
Yes.
his
Yes.
501c3 called the McKenna Academy. And so
Oh my goodness.
that was kind of another sign, like, okay, I'm on the right path. So meanwhile, I'm trying to navigate work and making a living. And after my Kundalini shift, I really didn't care much about work and making money. And it was really challenging to try and, kind of like walk on the earth and have this, this deeper understanding of
Mm.
truth. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody that goes through this, we all, kind of go through the same challenges. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so, you know, I also concurrently got the calling to move out of the city and move out to nature. And so it was right around the COVID time. It was 2021. And I started looking for a place in the country. And I found this place up in the mountains, and I ended up buying it and moved up here by myself with my little dog, and I bought a cat. And I had never lived in the country before. I didn't know what I was doing. And I've been here for over 4 years now, but my intention was always to start a medicine practice up here, which I've done. And so I have a private
Yes.
practice, and then I work with my friend Garrett with our monthly ayahuasca ceremonies, circles that we do. And that's a growing, beautiful community. So on top of that, I always consider myself a student. I'm also a teacher, and I help people find their way on this path, but I'm also forever a humble student and always learning. And always like having some humor and some compassion for myself, that I am just a student and I'm going to mess up and I'm going to make mistakes. And that's a beautiful part of life.
Yes. I resonate with that so much. I feel like that's my parenting philosophy.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's perfect.
I really, yeah, especially as, a single mom, and I really relate to what you're saying about, once you really do wake up and you start living in your awakeness, as Adia Shanti would say, abiding in it, it becomes a really interesting dance between um, the struggle of living in the system, and then also the acceptance of living in the system.
Yeah.
And I find, I go through, I think, these regenerative cycles we all do, on a daily basis, on a monthly, weekly basis, but finding myself, sometimes getting overwhelmed, and with my kids, just kind of modeling authenticity. I've been telling my children, my parents, my children since, well, my one child is only 2, but my other is 11. And I tell him, I'm not perfect. Like, this, sometimes I'm going to mess up. And
Yeah.
I try and really just model that. I'm also a student. I'm also learning. I'm also healing from my parents.
Yeah, we all have, the healing never stops, and whether it's our lived
Exactly.
experience or those of our ancestors, that just keeps coming up. I always joke
Yes.
around because every time Garrett sings to me next door, I puke my guts out every time. And I'm always like, man, I don't know where this keeps coming from. And it's coming from my ancestors, and it's
Yes.
also coming from the world around us because we live in a traumatic world. And so also we're always being hit with the energy of the trauma of everybody else and everything else.
Yeah.
And so that's,
Totally.
yeah,
It's always coming up. It reminds me, a friend of mine often says, she says, like, check in, like when I'm feeling overwhelmed, are you processing your pain or are you processing the pain of the collective? Because these
yeah,
things are so connected, they are not separate. And sometimes, especially when we're in the work, like sometimes I feel like I'm always in an ayahuasca ceremony.
right?
And
Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah.
life can just be like that when you're abiding in this kind of, I suppose, consciousness. So it can be really important sometimes to just actually just ground and just sort of stick with our own stuff as well.
That's right. And the very nature of regeneration is that it is this endless cycle. So
Yes.
like we're never one and done. There's no done. There's no done. It's
No, there's
this
no done.
continuous process. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that, I was speaking to such an amazing, also was in a ayahuasca facilitator, in his name is Steve McDonald, and in Australia, and he does light body activation now, and he speaks a lot about human evolution, and it's so beautiful to listen to people's stories because there's so many parallels, because we really are, we're really not individual, and as systems thinkers, there are paths, and then there are holes within paths and holes within part, and it just goes on infinitely. And I think that there does come a time, maybe, I don't know, actually, I don't know how it will be answered, but maybe there comes a time when that regeneration process can be more fluid. It doesn't have to embody, it doesn't have to be about suffering. It can be, uncomfortable. There are going to be times of death and composting and all of those things. But maybe there's more, maybe as we work through that, the density is more acceptance and allowance for these cycles to move through us and for us to move through them.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. And it all kind of comes back to presence and to acceptance. So those two things, right? That we're all going to become worm food one day, and 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 to have that loving acceptance of that, and also that the sacredness of presence of the present moment, and to honor that through present awareness, and as much as we can. It's a practice, and we're never
Yes,
gonna, we're always gonna jump ahead to the future and reflect on the past, and that's kind of all part of the human experience. But that practice of being present.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think that's why, one of the reasons why I love nature's principles so much, because I think if we were to really practice aligning with those things, it would require so much presence. There would be a lot less dogma. There would be so much less divisiveness, because it would all be around presence and being able to work with the context, and like I said, putting form to function. Like it's about, yeah, it's about allowing a future unknown to unfold without any kind of I suppose, beliefs or ideas or constructs, because I think those things can actually hold us back from our own evolution.
100%. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, in your practice now, your medicine practice where you are on the mountain, is that mostly with psilocybin, with the mushroom, or?
Yeah, I would say primarily psilocybin. DMT comes into it, as well as in some cases MDMA, which of course is not a natural compound, but it's a very effective heart opener. So
Yes.
It's really good for people who may be struggling with trust and not
Yes.
really trusting themselves, their intuition, maybe not trusting the process, maybe not even trusting me. But, chances are if they agree to come up here, they already trust me. A crazy old man
Yes.
living up in the mountains by himself. It's like, okay. But it is a really effective tool to allow, because it kind of disconnects that barrier of the amygdala and allows people to then really kind of have their heart open, and it connects them to their intuition. And so,
Yes.
sometimes I do use that in combination with psilocybin, sometimes on its own as well. And I also work with tobacco. And so I have a really good relationship with grandfather tobacco, and using Hape and Mapacho as part of a practice.
Beautiful. I worked much more with Pacho. Assisted. It was a big initiation for me
It's powerful, man. The
for
most
medicine.
powerful plant there is. He's amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, there is a myth that says it was Mapacho was the grandfather that kind of shared with the Pages, how to kind of create the ayahuasca. Yeah. Yeah. So in your practice, what do you feel is your unique intersection of modalities or insights or practices that you bring into the space that you hold?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that, my focus is really around a return to earth wisdom and a return to source connection through connecting with our natural world. I always try and teach people to remember that we are nature, and everything in our Western world and our Western culture is really about disconnecting us from that, and the power, the healing and connection and strength of nature. And so I know that that's why I was called to move out to nature, because it is part of this kind of integrated healing modality. So I have some training with silva therapy, and working with that and getting people out in nature. Really got some beautiful hikes up here and getting people out into nature. But also, like, in terms of my facilitation, I always encourage people to go outside, and to, some facilitators, they just want people to lay down and have the eye shades on and headphones on. I'm really about, if that's what you're called to do, by all means do it. But I do, before we start, encourage them, if they feel like it's safe and they want to do it, to get outside, because there's, these big beautiful old growth trees out there, and a gorgeous, glacier fed river right in front of my cabin. And I'm like, get out there and connect with nature, especially with mushrooms. I mean, mushrooms is a connector. It's the mycelium at work.
Mm.
To me, that is kind of like exponentially more powerful of an experience, is to bring nature into the modality of medicine. And of course, with ayahuasca, you have to be contained in the container of the maloca. So in the daytime, in between ceremonies, I again encourage people to go outside, connect with nature, get out there in the trees with the birds, and meditate and sit with Mother Nature. Because, I mean, my feeling is that Mother Ayahuasca is Mother Nature. I think they are the same beautiful, beautiful entity. Yeah.
And it reminds me, I was watching, I mean, I feel that the world has been given this opportunity to return to indigenous principles. And I was watching this indigenous woman explain that they don't have a word for nature, because just by implying that there is a word for nature is implying that we are separate from it. And yeah, so
The
and I
paradox
really resonated.
the paradox of duality,
Yeah,
right? Where it's like, it's like
exactly.
people like God referring to God as something other. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's why I think, I love Adir Shanti. He says there is only really one ultimate truth, and that is I am. Because the moment you say I am something, you start to separate out from, and yes, those things are true, because, you know, in true non-duality, even non-duality is a bit of a paradox, because it's the encompassing of the dual and the non-dual.
That's it. The paradox is everything. And for us to just step into that mind blowing paradox and know that we will never understand it, and just surrender to that.
And just, yes, and just have it feels like really, speaking again about presence, because when we can really start dropping into that, then life becomes a sensory experience the way that it is meant to really be. And it can be so incredibly delightful and awe-inspiring when we really can, have an experience, and not just this kind of thought experiment.
Yeah, like trapped in our thoughts, trapped in this
Yes,
constant narrative of the monkey mind saying no, yes, no, don't do that. Oh, you have to do this. What about them? Look what
yes.
they're doing. You should be doing that too. Like all that shit.
I know. And and it's interesting because and maybe this will lead to my next question. I think that we really are kind of, I mean, I think I hear a lot of people say we are in unprecedented times. And I think we are, but I always think that I think all times are unprecedented.
That's true. Very
We're,
true. I mean, there
I
may
think
be
we're always
similar
coming up against,
cycles. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. There might be similar themes and things that come up, but we're always coming up, like the context is always going to be different. And,
yeah.
like we're always going to be evolving into a future unknown. And so what do you think is humanity's greatest challenge right now? What do you think? Yeah. What do you think humanity's greatest challenge is right
I think that biggest challenge is to opt out of division and duality and to move into a practice of presence, curiosity, and understanding.
now? I love that you said opt out because it feels like a choice because yeah, that's what it feels like.
It's a choice and it's a practice of presence because at the end of the day, we will almost all always slip back into it. We'll get, pissed off about something and look what they did. It's a practice and having
Yes.
compassion for ourselves and know that it's a practice and that it's through presence and awareness, we can constantly be improving on this loving acceptance and compassion that we all are in our very root. And so, yeah, it is a choice, or is it? I don't know. There's another like eternal question, right? Is it a choice or is it all just divinely already laid out for us that the divine has already like mapped out our choices that we're going to make? Who knows? I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, and that is the mystery, hey. Like
It
that
sure
we
is.
really have to just embrace that we don't know. We
That's
don't
right.
know.
That's
And
right. You got it,
and
sister.
yeah. And we kind of just can, I think what we can do, I mean, can we? Well, maybe this is the game, is that we can choose to just ride this wave and maybe choose our experience, choose to choose opt out of the fear or abiding in fear and division and start choosing love and
Yeah.
unity and
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I think because of religion, that people have been disconnected from spirit through the centuries and millennia of religious trauma. And and most people have forgotten that there's spirit in everything. Everything is spirit.
absolutely.
Everything is and indigenous people know that. They know that and they've always
Absolutely.
known that. And
That's why you get,
go ahead.
yeah, that's why the yogis, what are they called? The yogis that they meditate in cemeteries and they sit in the death because they are abiding in the divinity of death and
Yeah.
decay.
I know. I mean, like think about it. Like death is amazing. Like I always go, man, that's gonna be the ultimate trip right there. The
Yeah,
ultimate
I've
trip.
I've had yeah. I had this amazing experience in an ayahuasca ceremony. It was with the Honey Queen, and my 4-year-old son was in ceremony with me. And it was at the end of the ceremony when the Honey Queen, yeah, it was amazing. And both my children have been in ceremony with me. And the page came around and he was putting the sananga in our eyes to close the ceremony. And in that moment, because I'd had quite a strong night, and in that moment, I remembered all my many deaths and remembered relinquishing my memories. Like in that moment, it felt like taking off a tight shoe and surrendering even the memories of the precious memories of my life. and the divine act of doing that in service of this great mystery, this
Love's
divine
grace.
unfolding.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful.
It was so beautiful, so beautiful. I will never forget that particular experience. It was just so profound.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So I wanted to just throw in a question about leadership, because emergence for me is about, it's an outward energy of creation. It's what emerges, through interesting new and novel sort of paths and in ecosystem. And so I think a big part of the interest in these conversations are people that are creating in the world and doing and leading. So I wanted to ask you, because this is an emergent sort of leader series that we're creating, how would you define a leader?
That's a great question. I would say a leader is somebody who is heart-centered, accepting, understanding, and knowing that they don't lead from ego, they lead from heart. I believe that a good leader is somebody who allows other people to lead themselves under their guidance.
Oh,
That it is it is a symbiotic kind of
yeah,
cooperative, collaborative practice.
yeah,
And because you mentioned sovereignty, which is a big word in the medicine space, and allowing people to feel their autonomy and sovereignty and allow them and empower them to step into their own divinity. I mean, that's what a leader needs to do. A leader is to inspire,
yes, yes.
greatness in the individual, not to command greatness.
And it's a very different way of looking at leadership compared to the sort of paradigm that we come from, the extractive sort of corporate paradigm that might define a leader in a certain way.
Right.
So that kind of leads me to my next question. Why do you think leaders should be doing this work of awakening sovereignty and expanding consciousness and healing and embodying their healing?
Because I mean, as a species, we don't really have a choice. I mean, you just look around. Just look around what's going on. I mean, we can all see it. The writing's on the wall. What's happening in our world is foretold in a million different scriptures, in a million different ancient traditions. We are at a cataclysmic and a regenerative and a transformational point in human history. And so without this understanding of the symbiotic, connected, unified truth, good luck. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that the two things that people need the two skills that are going to get people through what is going on now is presence and resilience. Those
Oh,
two things.
yeah.
And so,
And
yeah,
interesting, I was going to say, talking about biomimicry, if you look at nature, the most resilient ecosystems are the most diverse. And that's something that always sticks to me. Janine Benyas, who founded biomimicry, says nature banks on diversity, and it's diversity that creates resilience. And I wonder, diversity has been the thing that has really separated and divided us. But it feels as though if this theory is correct, in that if God or consciousness or the divine was unfolding in infinite ways in order to know itself, diversity is the very essence of life. And perhaps if we really started to shift our consciousness and our understanding and awareness of this, we could embrace our diversity and use diversity to unite us.
absolutely.
It's a very
Absolutely.
idealistic idea, but someone has to hold it.
Well, and I was gonna say, like the notion of diversity that we, and again, it's this paradox where we're all one source energy, yet each one of us is a unique expression of consciousness. And the dominant culture tries to put us into these cookie cutters, and it's like, what is, we can use this term normal, like What's like, no, you got to be normal. And if you're other than normal, then you have some kind of, like issue that you got to take a
Yes,
pill to make you normal. And
yes, it's
yeah, and you
terrible.
mentioned diversity, and I mean, like that's why like great teams, leaders assemble great teams based on diversity, based on the conglomeration of unique skills and talents and gifts to create this amazing, beautiful, well-rounded whole that can attack any problem from all different directions. Like that's, yeah, that's what she does. Yep.
Exactly. And it reminds me of that quote, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. I can't remember who said that, but
Yeah,
I think we were speaking also about that earlier, and it feels like really important now because the things that have been suppressed are coming to the surface. They're coming to light, especially with social media being just this huge broadcast. And so it feels like we do need to be creating spaces where we can integrate and connect again together, and to be building something, building new things and a new paradigm.
100%.
What truth in your work do you feel challenges conventional wisdom?
I would say that the revelation that the spirit world is very real and spirit lives in everything.
I believe in spiritual solutions for this world. I think that we need to go there.
That's right. That's right.
And where can people find you? And where can people find your work? How can people work with you?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn, Guy Borgford. That's where I post a lot of my writing about medicine work, about consciousness, about what we've talked about here. I'm on Instagram, and I'm part of a collective called Knowledge Brands, and that's knowledgebrands.co. And we're just emerging as a group of practitioners that are heart centered and peer vetted, offering everything from all the different medicine work as well as things like understanding regenerative systems design, talking about permaculture. I've got a permaculture project I'm doing here on my land, but also about things like therapy, coaching, all the things that people need as support to get on this path and to thrive in this path and to better understand this path. When I had my Kundalini awakening, I didn't know what had happened to me. And it was really challenging integrating that experience, like more than any psychedelic experience I've had. And it was like,
Absolutely.
and when people go through something like that, it is destabilizing. So having community where you have support and you can learn and get better understanding and allow you to navigate these other realms while still having your feet grounded in this three-dimensional version of reality that we all live in.
It's so important. It's so important. I really resonate with that. Yeah, I know. I did all the things, when I first started working with ayahuasca, I did all the things you weren't supposed to do. Quit my job, became a yoga teacher, and it was also lonely because back then everyone was like, "Aya, what? Like, what is that? Like, you're crazy. You're always doing these weird things."
Well, and loneliness, Rami, you hear it all the time. People who are on
Yeah,
this path, they talk about the loneliness of it because it is quite often
yeah,
a solitary experience. It is quite
yeah.
often because you go off, and if you're partnered up, they don't come along with you. And
No, you
there's an
don't.
immediate, I was in a relationship when I had my Kundalini awakening. All of a sudden, I was like I love this guy, I love him to bits, and I still do. Yet we're on two different paths. I have no interest in the things that he likes to do all the time. And he doesn't understand the things that I do. But man, I sure would
No.
like to get a cup of ayahuasca down him.
I relate. I relate. I think I even got my mom to drink ayahuasca once, and it was the one and done. I realized going to the medicine was not actually about changing my mom. It was about shifting the narrative within me and actually becoming a mom.
It's always us, isn't it? It's always us. At the end of the day, yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. So beautiful,
Oh,
my
Guy,
sis.
I've absolutely loved connecting with you, and I've loved having this conversation with you. I think I could talk to you for hours.
Same.
Thank you so much. I'm going to send you a mail. I'm going to send you a link to join our little community, so you can just
I'd
pop
love
in and
to.
see what we're building in there. And I'd love to, yeah, explore some ways that maybe we can create something or share your work, or just, yeah, this is the nature of it. I'll definitely, I'm going to write a little article about you and share this and all of that, and I'll share it all with you and link to your stuff and all of that. So
Beautiful.
so stay tuned for my email.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I will do the same. Once you send it, then I can share it out on my network too. I appreciate that. Thank you
Okay,
so
cool.
much.
That's all. It's all about collaboration and mutual thriving.
Blessing, beautiful sister. Thank you so, so, so much.
Blessings. Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.